Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the early hours of April 23, 2021, the quiet town of Crestwood was drenched in silence, the kind only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Nestled between verdant hills and sprawling fields, it was the sort of place where neighbors exchanged baked goods and children rode their bikes down sunlit streets. Darkness, however, often hides secrets. At 30 a.m., the tranquility shattered as the wail of sirens filled the air. Officers arrived at a modest two-story home on Maple Avenue, responding to a frantic call that would prop the town on the edge of its collective seat. It was here that Jennifer Hale, a 34-year-old nurse known for her unwavering kindness, was found lifeless in her living room, a shocking sight that would forever alter the fabric of this close-knit community. Detective Mark Averill, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for detail, stepped into the house. The faint scent of brewed coffee lingered in the air, mingling uneasily with the metallic tang of blood. Papers were strewn across the floor, and a broken vase lay crushed beneath a collection of forgotten photographs. Averill couldn't shake the feeling that the chaos before him represented more than a simple act of violence. It was the unraveling of a life once filled with laughter and love. As the forensics team meticulously gathered evidence, Detective Averill's gaze fell upon a set of footprints leading to the back door, prints, incongruent with the devastation inside. In a town where everyone knew one another, it seemed the line between familiarity and danger had blurred. The investigation into Jennifer's death was just beginning, and secrets that festered beneath the surface were about to be unveiled. The peaceful facade of Crestwood was about to be pierced. This was no longer just a peaceful town. It was a crime scene. The victim. Jennifer Hale's life was a tapestry of compassion woven with threads of ambition and warmth. Born and raised in Crestwood, she had always been a beacon of light, known for her infectious laughter and dedication to her nursing career. From a young age, she showcased a remarkable ability to connect with others, whether she was soothing a child's fears before a checkup or lending a sympathetic ear to her elderly patients. On the surface, she was the embodiment of what it meant to be humankind soul, thriving in a world often overshadowed by darkness. Friends described her as a nurturer who not only cared for others in her professional life at Crestwood Medical Center, but also impelled those around her to be better versions of themselves. Her kitchen was often filled with the comforting aromas of homemade cookies, which she would make for local fundraisers aiming to support families in need. Behind her compassionate exterior, Jennifer bore burdens. Her marriage to local high school teacher Tom Hale had been rocky for the past year, with whispers of tension that occasionally surfaced during community gatherings. Friends noticed the drained look in her eyes more often. They speculated about stress at work, but there were deeper currents at play. She had confided in her closest friends about feeling isolated and misunderstood, as if life had become an uphill battle against forces she could not quite name. In the days leading up to her death, Jennifer had increasingly withdrawn from social events and canceled plans, citing fatigue. But friends later learned that she had been exploring an escapee away out of a marriage that felt suffocating. The emotional strain she carried now echoed eerily, leaving those who knew her questioning how well they truly understood the complexities of her life. As Detective Averill reviewed her achievements and struggles, he began to see the shadows beyond Jennifer's bright smile. Who had wanted to silence her voice, Who had well or why? The question lingered in the air, a foreboding reminder that joy could sometimes mask a harrowing reality. In the quest for justice, the focus would shift beyond the woman herself now. It was time to unravel the threads of her life and confront the secrets that would ultimately lead to her tragic end. The crime scene. The chill of early morning clung to Detective Mark Averill as he surveyed the chaotic living room. The scene before him was a jarring contrast to the serene images of family that adorned the wall. Framed photographs rendered snapshots of happier times. Jennifer's beaming smile on her wedding day, her children's laughter captured in fleeting moments. But today, those memories felt like whispers of a past that had suddenly been snuffed out. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, chinking light revealed the details within the room. A broken vase lay in shards on the hardwood floor, vividly interrupting the otherwise simple decor. Splashes of red peppered the walls and carpet, a stark reminder that the mundane can often morph into the horrific without warning. The furniture was askew, as if a struggle had taken place. Cushions askew, a chair toppled over, and the coffee table displaced. Averill crouched down, examining a trail of small, damp footprints leading away from the living room and toward the back door. They were muddy, leading into the yard beyond, where the grass glistened with dew. The size suggested not an adult, but a child, perhaps one of Jennifer's two young children. This detail gnawed at him. How had they come to be intertwined in this malevolent act? Forensic technicians meticulously collected evidence, dusting surfaces for fingerprints and taking photographs that would underline the grim reality of the night before. Averill noted a half-empty cup of coffee on the counter, the steam long vanished, hinting that Jennifer may have been caught off guard. Had she sensed a threat, or was she simply enjoying an ordinary morning that had abruptly spiraled into chaos? As he stepped outside, he turned back toward the house, letting the weight of the moment settle. Nearby, a bright red tricycle lay precariously askew in the yard. A chilling reminder that childhood innocence had been tainted by violence. Each step was a reminder of the urgency. An insidious darkness loomed, and Averill felt the pressing need to bring justice to Jennifer's legacy. This was not just a crime scene. It was a shattered reality for a community that had believed itself safe. The gravity of the situation washed over Averill. A promise settled into his bone. He would uncover the truth hidden within these walls. The detective was now deeply enmeshed in a case that demanded answers. Every footprint counted, every moment mattered, and with the town's collective mourning heavy on his shoulders, he knew the investigation had only just begun. The early investigation. Back at the station, Detective Averill gathered his notes, his mind racing through the implications of the evidence from the crime scene. It was imperative to determine the last movements of Jennifer Hale. The focus quickly shifted to her immediate circle. Family, friends, neighbors, and anyone who might yield insight into her final days. First on the list was Tom Hale, Jennifer's husband, a figure whose presence loomed in the case like an unresolved question. Averill urged to meet Tom at the police station, his heart weighing heavy with the knowledge that this conversation could pivot the investigation in unforeseen directions. The brooding atmosphere enveloped the room as Tom walked in, his disheveled appearance underlining the gravity of the situation. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his pallor attested the suffocating fear that gripped him. Averill extended his condolences and carefully probed into Jennifer's life. Tom spoke through wavering breath, recounting how their marriage had descended into turmoil over the last year. He spoke of disagreements that felt insurmountable, of Jennifer's increasingly reclusive behavior, and of the therapy sessions that had failed to bind their fraying relationship. Each word dripped with the weight of sorrow and potential guilt, tinged with desperation. Conversation shifted abruptly as Tom's defenses erupted. "I never harmed her. We may have fought, but I would never touch her." The intensity of his assertion reverberated through the sterile room, bouncing off the walls like an unwelcome echo. Averill noted the outburst, a sure sign of either a grief-stricken husband desperate to clear his name or a protective facade for something much darker. After Tom's departure, Averill scrutinized the details further. He reached out to Jennifer's closest friends, searching for additional context that would illuminate the days leading up to the tragedy. Claire, a childhood friend, spoke hesitantly, recalling Jennifer's increasing anxiety about a big decision she had been contemplating. Claire couldn't understand it fully, noting Jennifer had hinted at the need for change, but hadn't elaborated. That elusive phrase stuck with Averill like a thorn. What could have prompted such a dramatic shift in a life seemingly filled with promise? As he chased leads and extracted testimony, one question remained. Was Jennifer pushed to her limits, or was there a darker, unseen force driving her fate? The small-town calm of Crestwood felt as fragile as glass, and with each conversation, it became increasingly clear something was amiss, and it was now up to Averill to unveil the hidden shards. The dead ends. As the investigation progressed, Detective Averill found himself ensnared in a web of complexities that threatened to consume the case whole. The longer he dug, the deeper it seemed to spiral into a persistent haze of uncertainty. What initially appeared to be a clear-cut situation grew murkier with each passing day, leading him to a frustrating standstill. Initial leads, including interviews with Jennifer's friends and colleagues, yielded little substantive evidence. Claire's comments hinted at frustrations in Jennifer's life, yet no one offered a clear picture of who her potential adversaries might be. Colleagues at Crestwood Medical Center mostly spoke of Jennifer's dedication, but when pressed about her personal struggles, they shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. It became painfully apparent that while many admired her, few understood Harris if she had carefully curated a version of herself that masked her inner turmoil. Averill turned his attention to technology. The forensics team examined Jennifer's phone, sifting through messages and social media interactions for signs of threats or disputes. Days passed, marked by the same agonizing routine. Hopes for a definitive lead met with silence and frustration. There were no recent communications that indicated a conflict. Conversations with her husband revealed nothing but a tale of, he said, she said, ambition, ambition masked by anger, an affinity for simplicity. To complicate matters further, the footprints discovered at the crime scene appeared to lead nowhere. A canvass of the neighborhood revealed no additional sightings of visitors or strange cars parked nearby. As Averill drove through Crestwood, the picturesque streets now felt like echoes of lost stories, harboring a multitude of unanswered questions. The friendly smiles of neighbors turned into taciturn nods, their discomfort palpable as the reality of violence had crept into their lives, shrouding the once bustling community with an unsettling quiet. After weeks of chasing both dead-end leads and elusive witnesses, Averill returned to the station feeling weary and dejected. His search for clarity was turning into an odyssey of frustration. Time ticked slowly in a case stalled by uncertainty, and with every unfulfilled promise of new evidence, the townspeople's anxiety grew more pronounced. Questions hounded him day and night. What had Jennifer been concealing? Who else in Crestwood was burdened by secrets that could have led to an act of violence? The answers felt tantalizingly close, yet perilously out of reach. Averill knew that a truth was waiting just beyond the shadow she just needed to find a way to illuminate it before the darkness consumed everything. A break in the case. As the weeks passed with no significant breakthroughs, Detective Averill's tenacity began to yield results from an unexpected source. Late one Tuesday evening, as he was poring over the endless notes and evidence sprawled across his desk, a fresh name emerged during a follow-up interview. It belonged to Lily, a quiet teenager who lived down the street from the Hale. Averill recalled having seen her at the neighborhood gatherings, always lingering on the periphery. With a hunch guiding him, he made arrangements to speak with Lily the next day. She arrived at the station fidgeting, casting nervous glances throughout the waiting area. In contrast to the layers of tension he had witnessed in previous interviews, Lily's demeanor struck him as intriguingly earnest. As they sat down, Averill approached the conversation carefully, encouraging her to share anything she might remember about Jennifer. The teenager's voice trembled as she recounted her experiences. "She was always so nice to me," Lily said softly, "but lately something felt off. I saw her the day before. She seemed scared, like she was looking over her shoulder." When pressed further, Lily hesitated before continued. "I heard her arguing with someone in the backyard. It was a man's voice. I thought it might be Tom, but it didn't sound like him." Averill's heart raced. This was the first concrete lead since the investigation had begun. He urged her to recall details of the argument, but she could only remember one phrase that had sliced through the haze of conversation. "You won't take them from me." As if in a trance, Averill jotted down her words, propelling questions into his mind like a whirlwind. Who had been threatening Jennifer? And why did it seem to revolve around her children? As he probed deeper, he learned that Lily had often seen a man around the same man who had stood in Jennifer's yard just days before her murder. Unlike previous witnesses, Lily appeared genuinely rattled by her memory, affirming the need for swift action. Averill wasted no time, high-noted a few key descriptors, and immediately enlisted a sketch artist to bring the phantom to life. Within 48 hours, a composite rendering of the mysterious figure had taken shape, illuminating a person of interest that could potentially pivot the investigation in an entirely new direction. With every neuron in his body firing with the thrill of discovery, Averill knew this lead required urgency. While it felt as if a glimmer of hope had penetrated the dense fog surrounding the case, he understood that remnants of fear and uncertainty lay thick in the air. The grail of truth was finally within reach, but in a town grappling with secrets, Averill was acutely aware that uncovering this mystery could unearth consequences he hadn't fully anticipated. The suspect, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ominous glow on Crestwood, Detective Averill convened a meeting with his team to discuss the findings from Lily's testimony. The composite sketch had been circulated to local law enforcement, and a sense of urgency electrified the air. Averill knew they had to act swiftly. There was a suspect unmasked by the shadows, one who might hold the key to unlocking the truth behind Jennifer Hale's tragic death. The man in the sketch was identified as Jake Collins, a recent arrival to Crestwood. Described by neighbors as a drifter, he had been swiftly sidelined by the community, viewed with skepticism for his transient lifestyle and peculiar habits. Averill learned that Collins often occupied a nearby vacant house, a dilapidated structure that served as an unwelcoming canvas for whispers of unease. Conversations with residents painted a picture of a man who kept mostly to himself. But when he did emerge, his interactions often sparked disquiet. That evening, Averill, flanked by his team, positioned themselves near Collins's residence, a place marked by neglect and overgrown weeds. As the shadows lengthened and the street lamps flickered to life, they waited for any sign of activity. Hours blended into an anxious stillness until finally, a figure emerged, a man with disheveled hair and unshaven cheeks. Averill's heart raced. This was their chance. Approaching cautiously, the detectives called for Collins to halt, ensuring he was received with authority. He turned, revealing the unmistakable features that mirrored the sketch. The air was thick with the mingled sense of desperation and crime as they moved to apprehend him. When questioned, Collins's demeanor shifted. He oscillated between confusion and irritation. "I don't know why you're bothering me." "I hardly knew her," he stammered, but his eyes darted, betraying a flicker of something deeply unmistakable. Averill persisted, relaying Lily's account of the argument and pressing Collins for clarity. In response, Collins grew defensive. "There were no fights. I was just minding my own business." But the speed at which he denied any wrongdoing only reinforced Averill's suspicions. After searching Collins's home, the detectives uncovered evidence that sparked alarm. Images of the Hale family, captured through the lens of a hidden camera aimed toward their property. Collins, it turned out, had taken an unsettling fascination with Jennifer and her children, an obsession veiled behind the mask of a reclusive man. Confronted with this evidence, Jake Collins's bravado crumbled. The facade of denial quickly morphed into panic, and he faltered in answering their pointed questions. Averill's instincts screamed that they were onto something significant. The seemingly unassuming drifter had morphed into the epicenter of this investigation, his reasons obscured in a thick fog of obsession and desperation. With the pieces of the puzzle finally beginning to connect, the team prepared for the next step. While Jake Collins stood unmasked, the broader implications of his actions now beckoned to be unveiled. And as Averill stared into the depths of Collins's eyes, a chilling understanding settled in the truth behind Jennifer Hale's death was beginning to crystallize. But the ramifications of uncovering it would echo loudly through Crestwood. The trial. The autumn sun cast a waning light over Crestwood as the trial of Jake Collins commenced, its atmosphere thick with tension and trepidation. The small courthouse, usually a sanctuary of justice, had morphed into a suffocating chamber of raw emotions, where community members and media alike gathered to witness the unfolding drama. For the townspeople, this was not merely a trial. It was a reckoning, a poignant confrontation with the darkness that had crept into their lives. Detective Averill sat among the spectators, the weight of the case heavy on his shoulders. The memories of Jennifer Hale lingered in his mind, her laughter, her kindness, and ultimately, the silence that had followed her tragic death. Every detail of the investigation replayed in his thoughts, echoing through the corridors of his memory. As the prosecutor laid out the case against Collins, it became apparent that his actions had been both calculated and chilling. They recounted the chain of events leading to Jennifer's murder, meticulously demonstrating how Collins had become fixated on her. The surveillance images were displayed on a large screen, administering a hammer of reality to the audience, harrowing reminders of the violation that had occurred in their midst. For the defense, it proved a daunting task. Their argument hinged on casting doubt over Collins's intentions, suggesting he was merely a reclusive man whose obsession had spiraled out of control, devoid of the malice required for a murder conviction. Averill watched quietly, aware that the line between obsession and outright violence often blurs in the darkness of the human psyche. Collins's lawyer attempted to paint a picture of a man misunderstood, trying to navigate the intricacies of a tortured mind. Witnesses for the prosecution delivered tearful testimonies, recounting the ripple effects of Jennifer's death on her children and the community. Even Tom Hale took the stand, his anguish evident, yet layered with complex emotions as he spoke of the love he had for his wife. Every word struck Averill like a spear, for the weight of loss that flooded the courtroom had become palpable. As the trial wore on, Averill found himself grappling with ethics as he listened to Collins' defense. While he held no doubt that Collins had intended malice, the trial demanded the elevation of truth above personal convictions. After days of deliberation, the jury retreated from the courtroom, leaving a silence so thick it bore the weight of shattered lives. When the jury returned a verdict of guilty for first-degree murder, a wave of relief surged through the courtroom that shifted into a cacophony of emotion. Sobs echoed, some gasping in disbelief, while others shed tears of sorrow and sob. Collins's face remained impassive, devoid of the remorse one would expect, a chilling reminder of the detachment harbored within. Detective Averill felt a bittersweet mix of satisfaction and sorrow swell in his chest. The verdict rendered by the jury marked the culmination of tireless investigation, but it also signaled the end of a chapter marked by anguish and unanswered questions. For Crestwood, the healing process had merely begun, as the scars of Jennifer Hale's absence remained etched into the hearts of those who loved her. As he left the courthouse, the autumn leaves crunched beneath his feet, a reminder that while life continues to flow and evolve, the shadows of the past linger, forever intertwining themselves within the fabric of the community. Justice had been served, but the journey toward redemption, the true healing of a heartbroken town, was far from over. The aftermath. Crestwood was a town in mourning, yet there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere as time wove its tapestry of resilience in the wake of tragedy. The once quietly picturesque landscape bore the scars of Jennifer Hale's murder. The laughter that once echoed through the streets, now tempered by a shared sense of loss. But as the weeks turned into months, whispers of healing began to emerge, threaded with determination and understanding. Detective Averill remained a regular figure in the community, frequenting the local diner where conversations often turned to Jennifer. Patrons would recount fond memories, their voices tinged with sadness, but also unity. Each shared story served to keep her spirit alive, a testament to a woman who had deeply touched the lives of those around her. Averill offered support where he could, listening as neighbors processed their sorrow, occasionally pointing to the glimmers of hope that remained even in darkness. Tom Hale, grappling with a duality of grief and relief, became a linchpin in the community's efforts to honor Jennifer's legacy. He spearheaded a local foundation dedicated to mental health awareness, a cause Jennifer had believed in passionately. He organized fundraisers, inviting speakers to share stories on coping with loss, mental wellness, and the importance of open conversation. The town rallied around him, coming together to lend their support and ensure the memory of Jennifer would always be tied to positive change rather than tragedy. Meanwhile, Lily, the quiet girl whose testimony had sparked the turning point in the investigation, embarked on her own journey of healing. The weight of her involvement sat heavily on her young shoulders, but she found solace in the art of storytelling. Inspired by what had unfolded, she began writing a children's book aimed at addressing the complexities of mental health and emotional resilience. Averill was impressed by her growth and tenacity. She had become not just a survivor, but a beacon of hope for her peers. In the months following the trial, the community began to host vigils and gatherings, each one a poignant reminder that horror could not erase the love shared among them. They lit candles and shared memories, their laughter mingling with tears, each gathering grounding them in a shared purpose. While the loss of Jennifer remained an unshakable reality, it had birthed a collective strength and unwavering solidarity that seemed to pulse through the very core of Crestwood. Detective Averill took solace in the transformation of the town, but also carried the weight of knowing that sorrow can be a stubborn, lingering guest. At times, he wrestled with questions of his own head. They'd done enough to prevent such a tragedy. What more could have been done? Yet each time a neighbor smiled or a child laughed, he was reminded that resilience, though fragile, is also profoundly powerful. In the end, the aftermath of Jennifer Hale's death served as a crucible for transformation. Crestwood emerged not unchanged, but evolved, woven tighter by the bonds of grief and the desire to foster understanding. While shadows still lingered, they were accompanied by flickers of hope, reminders that even in profound absence, love remains indelibly intertwined in the very fabric of life. And as the seasons turned, Detective Averill knew that healing, although a path laden with struggle, was ultimately a journey worth undertaking, one that would guide Crestwood into a future forged not solely in memory, but in enduring strength. Reflection. As the season shifted from the vibrant hues of autumn to the stark chill of winter, Detective Averill found himself reflecting on the past year, a journey punctuated by devastation, discovery, and growth. The memories of Jennifer Hale lingered, melding with the lessons learned and the lives forever changed within Crestwood. The small town had been ripped apart, but from the ashes of grief, they were gleaning resilience. On quiet nights, Averill often revisited the crime scene in his mind, replaying each moment spent in that sunlit living room, now steeped in shadows. He'd shake the images of Jennifer's family and friends, all reasoned expressions of sorrow crowding against the backdrop of human brutality. Each detail nagged at him, reverberating through his consciousness for every crime committed. A story lies undiscovered beneath the surface. He found himself unpacking the complexities of human nature and relationships, realizing how easily fear and desperation can overshadow love and compassion. Jennifer had been a nurturer, yet her life was tragically cut short, a stark. Behind closed doors, battles, rage, far from public scrutiny. The echoes of words like "you won't take them from me" haunted him, as society often remains blind to the struggles laced in every family. As Crestwood embarked on a new chapter, Averill remained deeply committed to his role. He recognized how vital it was to advocate for those whose stories remained unheard, and how bringing these narratives to the surface could prevent future tragedy. Each candle lit in Jennifer's memory served not only as a tribute, but as a guiding light for anyone grappling with their own darkness. He resolved to channel his energy into fostering trust, empathy, and awareness within the community. At its core, this journey was a profound reminder that every human life holds infinite worth. As Averill stood on a snow-dusted street, watching families gather, he felt a flicker of hope. It promised the potential for change, rooted in the ashes of heartbreak. The road ahead would be long and winding, but Crestwood's heart remained unyielded in the face of pain. In that moment, he understood love endures, and healing can emerge even from the darkest of circumstances.